Shalom. This week's Torah portion of Parashat Miketz, beginning in Genesis chapter 41, continues to focus on Yosef HaTzadik, the righteous Joseph. In last week's Parashat Vayeshev, we talked about dreaming, about Yosef's own dreams, as well as those of Pharaoh's servants with whom he was in prison. As we have learned, everything about this Yosef is bound up with dreaming, from the dreams of his youth that wound him up in that first pit in the desert, to the dreams of others that caused him to be raised out of the pit of his Egyptian prison straight to the throne of power. Our portion begins with the dreams of Pharaoh himself, dreams that left him disturbed, whose meaning was beyond anyone's understanding. So the next morning, Pharaoh, king of Egypt, tells over his dreams to his inner circle, as Torah states, and it was in the morning. His spirit was agitated. So he sent and summoned all the necromancers of Egypt and all its wise men. Pharaoh related his dream to them, but none could interpret them for Pharaoh. The king of Egypt was bewildered. All his wise men and advisors could not solve the riddle of his dreams. Now, these were not ordinary people, but accomplished stargazers and necromancers. Pharaoh himself had an intimate knowledge of the forces of nature. Pharaoh knew that his dreams were of tremendous import and significance. Yet he was frustrated because no one had a clue as to their meaning, and no one could assuage his distress. Now, these wise men were skilled in trafficking with dark forces. They were the most accomplished sorcerers in the world. So how is it that they could not interpret these dreams? 7 healthy ears of grain, 7 healthy cows, each set devoured by 7 wasted and emaciated ones in their stead? I mean, to us now, especially in our hindsight of knowing the truth, doesn't it seem a rather transparent allusion to nourishment and deprivation, to plenty and famine? But instead, Midrash informs us that Pharaoh's wise men told him that the succession of 7 cows means that you will father 7 daughters, but then you will bury all 7 daughters. And the succession of the 7 ears means that you will conquer 7 kingdoms, but then these 7 kingdoms will all rebel against you. This just didn't sound right to Pharaoh. But the dumbfounded state of incomprehension that he shared with his advisors was all part of Hashem's plan in order to set the stage for Yosef's entrance and ascension. God deliberately withheld the solution from them so that their counsel would be confounded, just like the words of Isaiah in chapter 44 and verse 25, who abrogates the omens of the stargazers and makes fools of the astrologers, who makes wise men retreat and makes their knowledge foolish. It was all God's elaborate orchestration, preparing Pharaoh to receive Yosef and to elevate him. These dreams were actually a manifestation of chesed, of Hashem's kindness. Pharaoh was the leader of a nation and responsible for many lives, and in his compassion, Hashem was showing him what was about to transpire, what his divine wisdom had decreed on Egypt, in order to give Pharaoh the opportunity to make the necessary arrangements and preparations. But Yosef knew why all the interpretations failed. He knew what was missing. Yosef and Pharaoh were like diametric opposites. Yosef's consciousness was never disconnected from the reality of Hashem, and at every moment of his life, he was a receptacle for divine inspiration. Pharaoh was in total denial of God the Creator, and in total denial of God's divine providence. In the Egyptian worldview, human events were random and chaotic, driven by the influence of the planets. Divine providence means that as creator and ruler of the universe, God himself directs all of creation and oversees and maintains everything. But since God created this world and everything in it for the sake of man, his providence extends to man in a very special way, to every single individual. Every deed of man is weighed, and man is given every opportunity to strive towards perfecting himself, to strive towards attaining goodness. And God leads each man towards the destiny for which he was born, and the purpose he was created to fulfill. The means of God's providence is not necessarily through overt miracles, but through everyday events, and always providing man with the opportunity for free choice. The prophet Jeremiah sums it up in chapter 32 and verse 19. Great in counsel, mighty in deeds, your eyes are open to all the ways of men, giving everyone according to his ways and according to the fruit of his actions. So this is all about divine providence. Pharaoh's mindset was totally fixated on a random world of materialism, devoid of any sense of unified divine direction. His world was a vision of a divided reality fought over by gods of conflicting powers, manifested by nature, with man held hostage like a pawn in their game. In this determinist world, man is caught in the middle of a struggle between opposing forces, and there is no meaning to life, no guidance, no divine providence. Just endless eternal battles between forces of good and forces of darkness. His gods were all portrayals of the elements of the earth. And so extreme was his earthiness that it's even alluded to in his name. The Hebrew word for Pharaoh, Paro, is made up of the same 3 letters that spell the word ha'afar, the dust or the soil of the earth. Therefore, Rabbeinu Bachaya teaches, God showed him dreams associated with the elements of the earth, the 7 cows and the 7 ears of grain. But their symbolism, conveying a message of the coming years of plenty and famine, alluded to God's providence over all material creation. Because everything in this world, from the smallest detail, is under God's direct supervision and is carried out according to his decrees that he made on Rosh Hashanah, the day of the new year, awesome anniversary of the creation of man and time of judgment, and therefore small wonder that all this is taking place on Rosh Hashanah. Pharaoh's dreams of sustenance and famine took place on this very day. It was Rosh Hashanah that Yosef was freed from prison and brought before Pharaoh, for on this day God decrees the provision and sustenance for the whole world, for every individual and for every nation. So open up your heart, deeper still, to what God is showing Pharaoh. And I saw in my dream, says Pharaoh, and behold, 7 ears of grain were sprouting on a single stalk, healthy and good. All 7 were sprouting on a single stalk, because these 7 ears are really one unit. Just like, open up your heart, this is after all the Shabbat of Chanukah this week. Just like the golden menorah in the Holy Temple that was fashioned out of one piece of gold, there were branches, 7 branches, and blossoms, and cups, and knobs, and a base. But it was not sectional, it was all one piece. Thus the verse in Numbers chapter 8 and verse 2 states, towards the face of the menorah shall the 7 lamps cast light. The 7 candles must illuminate in such a way that the light is unified, that they are no longer 7 lamps, but a single unit shining with the power of unity. Thus Yosef informs Pharaoh, the dream of Pharaoh is one dream. All its components are one. Yosef says what God is about to do, he told Pharaoh. God is revealing his secret to you. He wants you to know the secret of how he runs the world. It's not like you think. It's not like what you think you see. To you, it appears that everything just happens, that nature is functioning in an assortment of disparate forces. But in reality, there's only one power that drives all the different aspects of the world and all of nature's manifestations. Hashem gave Pharaoh these dreams to inform him that he alone is the primary cause and that this world is under his supervision alone. And plenty and famine and every variable in human existence comes from him alone, and he adjusts them, he alone, as he sees fit, meting out reward and punishment to man. Hashem's message to Pharaoh is an eternal message for all of us. Now hear this. The world of appearances is one big lie. Pharaoh and all his wise men could not accept that there is a creator who runs the whole world with divine providence. They believed that human events were governed by various powers, energies, stars. So it was amongst these that they sought answers, and thus, on Rosh Hashanah morning, plucked from his deep, dark dungeon and cleaned up very nicely, Yosef is brought before the king of Egypt, who says, so I heard you can comprehend a dream to interpret it. And Yosef, after everything he's been through, answers, that's beyond me. It is God who will respond with Pharaoh's welfare. And Yosef tells Pharaoh, the first thing you have to know is that there's a God in the world, and you're looking for love in all the wrong places. You're looking for the solution in the wrong place. The answer is neither with the magicians nor in the stars. And all these people you surround yourself with can't see past the limitations of the self-imposed prison of their own minds. The real meaning of your dreams is the meaning of all our dreams, and the meaning of everything that is. There's only one God in the world. The dream of Pharaoh is one dream. What God is about to do, he has told Pharaoh. There's only one, and he controls this world and all the worlds. And he brought forth and brings forth all of existence, including you. He watches over all, and all emanates from him, past, present, and future. He hasn't and doesn't and will not change. His unity is the greatest power of all, the only power. So now open up your heart deeper than ever before in your life. Miketz is the name of our portion, and the word means at the end of. The portion is called so because its opening verse states, it happened at the end of 2 years to the day. It was the end of Yosef's stay in prison. In God's grand plan, the exact moment for Yosef's release had arrived. The word ketz means an end, a conclusion. But every end signals a new beginning, just as the events that transpire at the opening of Miketz herald an immediate new beginning for Yosef, who transitions from being a prisoner in a dungeon to becoming viceroy of Egypt. But within the framework of Torah tradition, this word ketz, the end, essentially grabs our attention in terms of the concept of an end leading to a new beginning, because the word is often used as a portent for the great changes that will take place at the time known as Ketz Hayamim, the end of days, the time when all the world will be rectified and all humanity will be united in the recognition of the one God. And thus, our portion and its lessons are already foreshadowing the end of days. But commenting on our portion, the Midrash makes a connection between our opening verse, Vayehi Miketz Shenatayim Yamim, which means it happened at the end of 2 years to the day, to another verse, and this one found in the book of Job, in chapter 28 and verse 3. He sets an end to the darkness and he investigates the end of everything, the source of gloom and the shadow of death. Rabbeinu Bechaya teaches that Hashem sets a limit to everything. He set an end for Yosef to leave prison. He set an end for the exodus from Egypt, as we learn in Exodus chapter 12 and verse 41. It was at the end of 430 years, and it was on that very day that all the legions of Hashem left Egypt. But open up your heart deeper still. These words from Job, he set an end to darkness, are actually an allusion to none other than these very days of Chanukah, the period known as the Greek exile, when the forces of the Greek-Syrian king Antiochus invaded the land and defiled the Holy Temple and enacted decrees against Torah study and observance. In the writings of our sages, this period is referred to as darkness. Midrash teaches that the words in the second verse of Genesis, and darkness covered the face of the deep, alludes to this period because the Greeks darkened the eyes of Israel through their decrees, is the teaching. They forced Israel to write on the horn of an ox, "We have no portion in the God of Israel." But he set an end to darkness, and that force of darkness was defeated. And thus the very word with which our portion begins, Miketz, is a bridge that joins the story of Yosef in Egypt with the Chanukah miracle and spans all the way to the end of days. At times, we are all like Pharaoh and his advisors, trapped in the self-imposed prison of our own minds. Every person faces times of darkness in their life. And in the life of the whole world, there are times of darkness as well. But these times of darkness come to an end. He set an end to darkness. Ketz sam lechoshech. So now really open up your heart deeper than ever before. The word ketz, the end, is also connected by its root to the word yitzika, yikitza, to wake up. A new beginning. Time to wake up. There's a limit to how much darkness will be in this world. Yosef entered into the darkness in a dungeon in Egypt. It couldn't get any darker. But this is unbelievable. He realized who put him there. He knows it was God who put him there, and he knows it was to teach him about placing his trust in Hashem. Thus, the Holy Baal Shem Tov teaches us that the whole story of Yosef in that jail is to teach us about trust in God. And this is the deepest truth in the world. Hashem delivers each person commensurate to how much one trusts that his deliverance comes from Hashem. The whole gripping story of the righteous Yosef's ascent from a pit to the divinely appointed position of viceroy of Egypt is a lesson in the level of faith and trust in God that we all aspire to. Yosef's trials and tests and dreams, as well as the dreams of Pharaoh's officers and those of Pharaoh himself, and the miracles of Chanukah, both the miracle of the oil and the military victory of the Chashmonaim priests, everything points to one single source. Everything leads back to the presence of the Creator of the world, and not simply to his presence, but to his personally watching over, personally directing, and to his being personally involved with every nuance of our lives. Our challenge is to recognize, acknowledge, and be thankful for the guiding hand of Divine Providence. Thank you for watching this week's Jerusalem Lights Torah portion. Blessings to you for Shabbat Shalom and a beautiful, light and love-filled Chanukah.